Hello everyone, my name is Terai Koronui. I'm the founder of Love from Inside Out, and I share my insights to empower people so that they feel loved, let go of unloving experiences, and also have the courage to make the necessary changes they need so that they can start living the life they truly love, which includes having loving and more conscious relationships, a purposeful life. Today I'm interviewing one of my favourite people. She's also a friend of mine. Tiziana Stupia has just accomplished what most of us want to do, and that's to write a book. The book that she's written is this wonderful one called Meeting Shiva, and it's about, can you see? It's about a spiritual journey where she encounters a monk, well, in the Himalayas, and this was only part of a tale of a journey that Tiziana had been on for a couple of years. So without any further ado, I'd love to introduce Tiziana, who is right now in Germany. Hi, Tiziana.
Hello, Terai.
Hi, it's been a little while since we last saw, but we met about 18 months or 2 years ago here in Toowoomba, Australia. And at that time, you were still in the editing phase of the book, and it was just incredible that, well, you're an incredible person, so I expected it to be finished anyway, but it's an incredible book. Can you share with the audience about this book?
Yeah, Meeting Shiva is the story of a stay that I had in the Indian Himalayas in 2008. It's really a book about a relationship, a very unusual relationship I had in India with a Hindu monk that I encountered in a remote ashram in the Himalayas as I was traveling through. I started to teach English in that ashram, and despite all of our best intentions, we got involved in a very intense, intimate relationship. And this relationship really shattered all my beliefs, everything that I ever held true about love. And it really woke me up. It was a very difficult, a very excruciating relationship amongst all of the other obstacles that were in the way, the secrecy in which we had to conduct the relationship, and a lot of dark things that kind of went on behind closed doors as well in the relationship. And ultimately, it just showed me some very uncomfortable truths about myself, about religious institutions, about my partner at the time. But really, at the end of the day, it was all about me, my own transformation and my own healing. And that's really what led me to write the book.
Prior to traveling and meeting Rudra, the monk, that some not very good relationships, and you saw some negative patterns in these relationships that you had been trying to work through. What were these, and what was your learnings from as a result of this massive relationship you had?
Well, my main pattern in relationships was always the unavailable man. And really, I have been in quite a lot of relationships in my adult life, and I ended every single relationship in my life because I was bored, because it was too difficult, there was always something wrong with the other person. So, that kind of was my pattern. I fell in love with a lot of unavailable men, I mean, all sorts, gay men and married men, and it was long-distance relationships, anything that would make me feel safe, where I didn't truly have to be intimate, but it was always the other person's fault, never had anything to do with me, of course,
And then when you encountered Rudra, can you explain what kind of a monk he was? So, which makes it, who's the most unavailable person in the world apart from the Pope, really?
Really? Yeah. Yes. And that was kind of the epitome of a long line of unavailable men. To be honest, I never thought a relationship would develop between us. I did find him attractive when I first met him, but I just didn't think it would be possible. I mean, here he was a monk who had been a monk for like almost a decade under the vow of celibacy. So I just never dreamt that this would ever happen. But it did, and it happened for a reason, because it changed everything for me.
What was your definition of a relationship or of love prior to meeting this man, and then after the affair that ensued? What do you define love as now?
Well, before I was in the relationship with him, I had this whole idea about there is the one out there, this one magical person who will make everything come all right and help me to have a happy, fulfilled relationship. Somehow I felt I hadn't met my match. There was somebody out there who could maybe, well, I don't want to say save me, but somebody who would be perfect for me and could make it all right. Also, my definition of relationships was really quite self-centered in the way of, well, I give you that if you give me this. It was more like a transactional thing, and I think that's pretty normal in society. We all want to get something out of loving relationships, and vice versa. After the relationship, I recognized really that love, first and foremost, is freedom. Um, Freedom to support the other person to be all they can be, to help them to live the life of their dreams and to become all they can be. So that really is the thing that has changed for me, that love is free of all conditions and, yeah, is unconditional.
What do you believe are your greatest learnings about love now, about people, about judgment of others, and your life as a result? What do you take into your life now after this experience? And when I say this, I know that we move on and it'll probably be different in 2 years' time, but right now, of love and then people and judgment of others.
Yeah, but what I feel like one of the greatest things that I've learned is that we're all human. Each of us are a combination of dark and light. And that's really pertinent to your question about the judgments about other people. Because, first of all, when I went to India, I was very naive. I thought, okay, you go into a spiritual place with spiritual people, and they're all going to be angels. And actually, what I've learned by living in these types of places, it's not quite like that. Behind closed doors, we all have our demons, and we're all human. And essentially, we're all of the same. We're all the same. And that's quite liberating. I think what I've learned also about love is really ultimately for me, and I don't know if that's true for everyone else, but for me, love is the essence of freedom. I want to be able, for my partner and for myself, to be free, whilst being committed to each other, but free to pursue our destiny, free to do what we came here to do and have the full support of the other person for that. In terms of other learnings, you asked me some other questions as well about, sorry.
Yes, I suppose I said a lot of love, of people, of how we judge others, and of life as a result of this. And I think you really encapsulated it when you said love is the essence of freedom. So, and in that way it's to allow others, like in our judgment of them, we should still be aware that they're free to do what they want to do. So I love what you just said.
And I think compassion comes in there as well, because I by nature have the tendency to be quite judgmental and quite critical. But when I've learned that, ultimately when I finally got it, that we've all got our things going on and we're all essentially the same, judgment then just drops away, because we are just mirrors of each other. And whenever I'm judging or criticizing another person, I'm really judging and criticizing myself. Having said all that, to come back to the thing about relationships, I do think, despite everything I've said about freedom, there needs to be a certain compatibility between two people as well. That's also something that I've learned. If, for example, I want to have children and my partner doesn't want to have children, then we might not be the best partners together. I can still love that person, I can still wish him well, but a partnership needs to have certain compatibilities as well, for the freedom to work, I believe.
That's amazing, because now that's looking at relationships through, having this higher level of understanding what love means, and that's allowing the other person to be who they want to be and to be freely themselves with your support, whether it's something that you agree with or not. And yet on this physical level, we still have to relate, like we still have to find compatibilities. And I think you're probably the first person that's really, given the full picture of what a relationship is really all about. We can't just be really spiritual and just, have this love at that level and without having the physical compatibilities, because I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? It's a bit confusing sometimes when you think on a spiritual level you get it, but on a physical level, how do you make somebody be compatible with you?
Well, you can't. I think you cannot make somebody be compatible with you, but you can do your research before you get involved in a relationship, and that's something I haven't often done very well. I've often been swept away by somebody's looks or by somebody's words, or and haven't really looked at the realities of it. I think we have to realize that we are a combination between the spiritual and the physical, that we are both, because it's all fair and well having these high, lofty spiritual ideals, and they're all very true, I don't deny that, but at the same time we are still rooted in the world. We still have to live our everyday life. And if I'm together with somebody, for example, I mean, I've been in 2 relationships now with Indian men, and they are lovely, beautiful people, but our cultural ideas and our cultural backgrounds are very, very different. And to try and make them fit with each other with years and years of conditioning and cultural ideas is very, very difficult. It's like, I've spent some time in Pakistan. If I were to go there now and marry a man from Pakistan who would expect me to be at home and, live my life indoors and cover myself, if I go out, yes, I could make that work, but I don't think it would make me happy, and we have to consider that as well, that there needs to be a certain compatibility of ideas.
Just describe for the audience who haven't read the book what type of monk he was and how religion or his following or
is pretty much comparable to what maybe a Catholic monk would be like, perhaps even more austere. It was a setup which was entirely male. It was very, ideologically speaking, very masculine, very much bordering on the abstinence and not having any sex, not indulging in intoxicants, not having relationships, living in a very austere manner. I mean, there were no carpets or any modern cons in this ashram. There were concrete floors and a bucket of cold water and no window panes in the windows. So I mean, this is what you can imagine what it was like. So it was a complete life in service to others, and like personal desires and wishes didn't really play a part in that. And that's what I came into with my ideas about free love and creativity and connection. And it was very interesting how that relationship developed, because really speaking, we were polar opposites.
Yes, and it was a very austere, as you describe in the book, environment. So, yeah, it's very intriguing. It was very, very secretive too. I don't understand how you were able to carry on having a relationship for was it for a month without anybody seeing you? There were so many people around you.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, we had a lot to do with each other because he was head of a school in which I was teaching English. So because of that, we had to talk to each other quite a bit. But we met in secret at night in his room. But having said that, I did have my doubts whether anybody did notice, because yes, I mean, we were in his room, but somebody would have had to just see me come in or out, and that would have been the end of it. And maybe people did even know. I mean, I wasn't there long enough. I think if I had stayed longer, then it may have very well come out.
And there were these other habits that he was indulging in that came as a surprise to you too. Would you like to share them?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say that he had some very dark, destructive addictions behind the facade of being the pious monk. And that came as a very big surprise to me, and it also helped me to heal a lot of my background, in which addictions such as these were prevalent as well. But, as I was saying earlier on, I was very, very naive when I first came to India. And I really did think somebody who says he is a monk and only does pure light things really just does that. And India really shattered my illusions in that.
So having had this affair, how do you think it will impact any relationships that you've had so far since then, or ones that you will have in the future? I mean, how will it help these relationships? How has it helped you?
Well, it has. I have had one relationship after the relationship with the monk, and it has been very different in that I know I can see and own my own projections now. I still have some challenges with intimacy. I'm not going to say everything is completely healed since this relationship, but I can see now what's going on. I'm aware of what's happening if I'm feeling irritated, if I'm feeling angry, if I'm feeling sad. I can often see that it's not my partner who is causing these emotions in me. It's really just something old, unresolved from my childhood that I haven't really looked at yet, and that's being triggered, an old wound. And as soon as I recognize that, then I can share that with my partner and I can say, look, this isn't really about you, even though I may appear to be angry with you. It is actually my stuff that I need to work through, and I can share that now and share in relationship with the other person. And that's really quite wonderful, because before that I didn't really have a clue. I mean, yes, I knew there was obviously something not quite healed in me, but I didn't know what exactly it was and what I could do to heal it in relationship.
That's very empowering, because I mean, in the work that I do and through my clients and my own personal journey of overcoming unloving relationships and unloving experiences, it's empowering to start seeing what it is that you contribute, what it is about you that you're making, you know, happening or manifesting in your life and the relationships that you start having, whether it's from your childhood, whether it's from, you know, some experience that you've had along the track. I find that that's the most enlightening thing. What would your main suggestion be for others who are still stuck in some way in a paradigm of attracting the people that are not right for them, or maybe just, you know, having the people that are right for them, but then the patterns, the negative patterns just crop up, whether it's an intimate relationship or relationship with colleagues, because it doesn't matter which relationship it is, these things, you know, keep coming on all the time. So what would you suggest to people how to get out of that pattern?
Well, I would first of all suggest to learn and take responsibility, learn to heal and learn to find out what it is that is your particular pattern. Some things that have really helped me, I mean, I did a lot of body work, which I've described in the book as well, the type of body work that I did with a teacher that has really helped me to access some very deep trauma that was stuck in the tissues of my body, because that's where we really carry and lock away the trauma that we haven't resolved at the time. So I would look into particular types of body work. If you haven't had any therapy before, psychotherapy, that can sometimes be very useful as well, in particular if you haven't done any healing work, you know, because it can just help you to understand where you're coming from. And there is another thing also that I found really useful for particular that sort of thing, and that is imago therapy, IMAGO, from the United States. That's a theory that has been invented by somebody called Harville Hendrix in the United States. And his whole theory is about how we choose the people that resemble our caretakers from childhood to have intimate relationships with. Because he says we were wounded in childhood by our parents or whoever else it was who took care of us. So in order to heal that, the only person that can really help us heal that is somebody who resembles them, which is why so often we choose a man that's just as unavailable as our father was, or a woman who is just as controlling as our mother was. And when we can become aware of that, then it's that knowledge and that awareness that is the power. So I would just suggest try and become as knowledgeable, as aware as you can be about your own patterns, about your own woundings, and get support, because it is really, really hard to do it by yourself.
That's true. So sometimes it's really tricky to explain to people why they need to go and see a therapist, because they think they can deal with things themselves. It's always good to have an observer's point of view, because and plus professionals like you and I know a little bit more about. We see a lot of people and we come across a few different experiences, so that's a good reason why. You know, people should be open to other people helping them through their personal issues. Look, as you know, I like to get people to start making changes so that they start living their purpose or living a meaningful life. And one of those things that people, these goals, lofty things that people think that they they want to achieve is like writing a book, or maybe world traveling worldwide. You've had a very successful um, profession in the music industry. You're also a qualified psychologist. You've traveled the world. You've now written a book. What would you say to someone who says, oh my gosh, I wish I could start doing the things that I love, but where do I start? How do you do it?
Yeah, see, I get that a lot of the time. People come up to me all the time and say, "Oh my God, you're so inspirational. I would love to do what you do." And, like you said in your question, you know, do you just say to people, follow your heart? Is it really just that simple? And I think, I mean, I can only talk from my own experiences. And for some reason, I was born with a very strong will. And for me, it's been kind of easy to just do what I want to do because I have that kind of personality. I just be very, very unhappy if I don't do what I love. But I realize it's not the case for everybody. And there are a lot of people that are grown up in maybe societal or cultural restrictions or, from their parents' expectations. And that's like heaps and heaps of conditionings that's sometimes really hard to break through, especially if you haven't got the character that is like a bulldozer, which sometimes, we have. So I'm thinking, take small steps. One thing that has really, really helped me in becoming more creative in my early 30s was a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Now, that's a really, really wonderful book. It's like, I think, a 12-week course that you can do at home. And she gives you really lovely little creative exercises to liberate the creative genius that's in all of us. Because I'm not special, nobody's special. We all have that inherent creativity and joy and love in ourselves. And that book has really helped me to liberate myself from fears and from all sorts of voices in my head that told me, oh, you can't do that. And so I'm thinking, if you do want to write a book, for example, don't start with a book right away. Go to a course maybe that teaches you how to write an article. Start small and then let it grow. Writing a blog is a really good thing as well.
That you have to have this will, like you said, this strong will that no matter what the voices in your head are telling you, especially the ones who tell you that you're not good enough, you won't be able to do it. You've got to get beyond that and know that you were here to, you were here for greatness, or even, just to move and work towards greatness. What do you say about that?
Well, I think, taking small steps is really important. Healing yourself, transforming yourself within that framework, because I wouldn't recommend to anyone, well, leave your family, leave your partner in order to just do what you want to do. But I think
that's right.
within that framework of expectation, I think there's a lot of freedom as well. And it is true, I meet a lot of people somehow, even just on the street or in random cafes, and they'll say to me, oh, I really want to do this and I don't know how. And that's quite funny how I somehow meet these people a lot of the time. But I always try and give them some suggestions on how to start small and how to gather more courage within the framework that they're in. And because it is possible to do what you want and change.
Yes.
Even if you do have these responsibilities. But I think the most important thing is to liberate yourself from the voices of your parents in your head. Because I think that's the most limiting thing, because we have all these things that our parents told us, like, oh, you can't do that, or you have to do this profession, or we expect you to do that. And as long as we carry those silent voices, well, not so silent voices with us, I think it gets really, really hard. We have to get to the truth of who we are, not how our grandmothers or our parents or our sisters and brothers. I think we just have to find out who we truly are and what makes us happy.
Perfect. I love that.